is it not working? Oh, there we go. All right.
Let me know when we're live.
We're live.
Are we live right now?
Yeah, we're live right now.
All right, take a seat.
All right.
Take a seat, fellow presenter. No, leave it where it was. It was
You
good.
like
Yeah,
it? Yeah.
we already got my laptop in there. Can't even see it here. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. All right. Let's see that beautiful face. So we're live?
Yeah, we're live.
How many viewers? Well, we'll figure out later.
Millions. To the millions of people that are watching.
All right. Well, I think introductions are in order. Don't you think?
I think so. I like it.
First, let's toast the inaugural.
Cheers to the first one.
Cheers to the first episode. And welcome, everyone, to the Carolina Packers podcast,
Yeah.
episode 1, coming live to you and from you-know-where, Packers, North Carolina. You guessed it. We're going to bring you all the sports updates that we find interesting, which are the ones you should care about.
I like it.
And so I guess
We'll
there's
start off.
been some good rumblings in the sports world, as I've been told from ESPN. Couple of big trades coming down in the NFL and NBA offseason. First one that maybe we should talk about right now is the big news out of the Cleveland Browns, Carolina
yes.
Panthers.
Ooh, it sounds familiar. Carolina.
Yes.
First right off the bat.
Yes, it's worth talking about. It's always exciting to watch two legendary GMs at work who have been known to build Super Bowl caliber teams and squander them. And so by the Cleveland Browns. Evan, tell us how we got to this situation where the number one pick in, I believe, 2015,
yeah.
prior Heisman winner, Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Traded to the Carolina Panthers for a 5th-round conditional pick.
Well, it's a very interesting situation because they had Baker Mayfield from 2015. They were excited. They thought
We were all excited.
we don't want Johnny Manziel in football anymore, so we went to another Heisman winner, and they were
Got him number 1.
very much looking forward to it.
Good luck for the Cleveland Browns getting
Oh.
all these number 1 picks.
Oh, you
How
would think
do
it'd
they
pan
do
out.
it? How do they do it?
They find a way every year, or I should say, not as much anymore because they've been getting better.
But maybe they'll be back.
Oh.
That's for another topic.
That's a different one. That's a different one. But no, yeah, they had Deshaun Watson out of nowhere. You get the news of Deshaun Watson heading to
Why have our quarterback who had one bad season when we could have a scandal-ridden, hasn't played in a season quarterback from Texas?
and let's give him a lot. Let's
give
give
him
the
a lot.
Texans a lot of picks and let's just go for it.
Hey, when you have a guy that may never play again, you can demand a price.
You would think, and then you'd
And the
think,
Browns paid.
yeah, and then you would think, okay, Baker Mayfield, we'll get rid of him and get a lot of return. Oh, they were wrong.
They were wrong.
They got a 5th-round pick, but I looked into it a little more, and it could go lower. It could be a better pick depending on how much Baker Mayfield plays, depending on a lot of different situations. They have a little bit of wiggle room, but still, you must be happy as a Panthers fan.
I am happy as a Panthers fan. I'm very happy. The city of Cleveland feeds off of disappointment. So, no surprise coming out of them. I bet their fans are happy too.
Yeah.
They must have been so angry when the beer coolers opened. Time to close those fridges back up.
Yeah.
But here in Carolina, it will be nice to see a new face after Cam Newton came back. And as much as I would like to see Cam in some role on the team, even just as a backup, kind of as a veteran guy, he has not shown the same starting caliber that he once possessed.
He's a little older, and that's unfortunate because, as someone that grew up in Carolina as well, even though I am a Packer fan, I did enjoy watching Cam Newton and thought he was a very, very successful quarterback and did a lot for the game. But now you have Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold.
So what do you think that the Panthers should do about the whole Sam Darnold situation? Do they hold on to him?
Well,
They've
the
got him
crazy
under
thing
contract.
is you're paying Sam Darnold more than your starting quarterback's going to be.
And admittedly, Sam Darnold started out last year very strong.
Very strong.
In fact,
He knows the offense.
he knows the offense, though it is a good receiver core.
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically, a capable quarterback. I think you could plug a lot of quarterbacks in the league into the Panthers receiver core. They're really, with Christian McCaffrey too, if he's healthy, they're really a pretty good quarterback away from making a run at the playoffs. I won't say, I'll hedge my bets. I won't say anything too far.
Well, I'm
But-
trying to think. Christian McCaffrey was injured for a little bit of the season last year.
Yes.
So, again, it all goes back. Has Sam Darnold really had a full season to really show his stuff, whether that be from the Jets or from the Carolina Panthers?
It's a shame that he was drafted by the Jets because I think that the Jets really crush the ability of all young starters that go into their team because he showed promise. He's had some ups, some really good ups. I mean, he started the year leading in rushing touchdowns,
Something like that, yeah.
among quarterbacks.
Yeah, he had that stat of rushing touchdowns, which is good, but he's a quarterback. So you would think you would
think the
want
running back would
more,
get that.
a little more passing yards as well, and just being comfortable because he's been in the league for quite a few seasons. He should have it figured out by now. He's done with the. Okay, he's a rookie. Okay, he's a second year. Okay, he's a third year. He's gotten into enough playing time where this is most likely either it or very few chances left for Sam Darnold.
Well, I guess it's kind of like a measure of success. Who were the other top quarterbacks drafted in his class? Do you know off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head.
Was
I'm trying to think.
he part of the 2015
He was
class?
a part of the 2015 class.
So he's
he
meeting
was
his
drafted
fellow-
third.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was drafted third. Sam Darnold was drafted third, and Saquon Barkley, another player that's been
Again,
very high.
how could you lose
very
in such an
low.
excellent draft?
But yeah, I mean, it's by having a couple quarterbacks and by Baker Mayfield going public saying, I don't want to play for you anymore, you kind of lose like I said, all your leverage to get back a lot of picks and a lot of weapons or anything. So I think he might have maybe been cut at the end. So getting a fifth-round pick might have been the only option for them.
I can understand Baker's position, though, where he would want to leave. Because the Browns, I would say, did begin to get a little bit antsy. They acted like they were going into another Johnny Manziel situation. And I know that there might be a lot of disappointed Cleveland fans who would disagree and think that it was time to move on from Baker Mayfield. But I know he had some bad games last year. He didn't play great. He had a couple of games with multiple interceptions, if I remember that right. And I think it has to be considered that he got surgery last year. He was playing injured, and even if he was fully healthy, I think one season of disappointment, it's hard to throw someone under the bus, especially with such a revolving door in the organization with regard to the coaching situation. There were a lot of questions involved. I mean, how many coaches have the Browns gone through in the last 5 years?
Coaches, offensive coordinators, just
Yep.
everything, really.
Odell Beckham Jr. was, I'm sure, his initial number one target. Turned out he wasn't able to play with him, so all of those reps, practice time together, that rapport, essentially down the drain. And then there's the added situation of the internal politics on the team, where Odell comes back from injury, wants more of the passes, has not been there. He's got this rapport with Jarvis Landry, but he feels he needs to feed him the ball. I can see how there was a lot of potential flux in there where I think it was maybe premature for the Browns to get rid of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I mean, but then again, you have to look at the situation and think, okay, yes, Deshaun Watson has all these allegations and everything, and it's kind of a toss-up if he will play again, let alone next season. But if you really believe in Deshaun Watson, which I mean, when he was playing, he was a top
fantastic.
quarterback. So if you really think, okay, Baker Mayfield's not the future for our team, we need someone to push their teams a lot.
That's true.
So you could have been like a Sam Darnold or someone, so far at least, that you look at the quarterback and say, oh, so they took a shot at Deshaun Watson. I don't know of any bad blood between Baker Mayfield and them before that happened.
No.
I think it was just a shot that the Browns did, and then right after that they go and sign Jacoby Brissett, which, as NC State fans,
indicates that it indicates to Baker that he's not the intended
he is
backup.
not the intended backup.
Which, in some ways, I imagine that from the Browns front office, they intended to trade Baker Mayfield for a little bit more than a fifth-round pick.
Yes.
And I guess from a strategic managerial standpoint, the Jacoby Brissett signing, as much as they wanted to lock down a good backup, which he is.
He's a very good backup.
He's a very good backup. It probably should have come after a trade. Because once that came through and Baker demanded a trade and that he would not play, I believe he said he would not play.
Yeah, he would not play.
So essentially demanding a trade. That drops his value significantly.
Significantly.
And
I mean that's basic. That's basic stuff. If you're looking for something and they don't want it anymore,
Yep.
that gives you that gives you such a big high leverage on them, like I said before, and it really puts your team in a bad spot.
Well, yeah, I mean, he indicated to them essentially that he would just eat cap space.
Yeah.
And so-
he still is.
And he still is, which that's the amazing part. I think the unspoken part that may come to haunt the Browns in this trade is that they were not able to, not only did they not get much return value for him, I mean, what are you getting in the fifth round?
You're not getting that much.
Not that much.
There are gems, but again,
But for the number
it's
one
a very hit or
Heisman
miss.
trophy.
Look at it differently and say, "Oh wow, they got a fifth round pick for him." But he's been decent. He's been good.
Right.
Even.
If I'm the Carolina Panthers, I feel really optimistic.
Oh yeah.
Because the
Have
Browns
to.
are plagued by organizational problems. Frankly, I think Nick Chubb has been the unicorn in the Cleveland Browns, where he will not be brought down by kind of the things that have plagued them, and Jarvis Landry. But,
Kareem Hunt as well.
Kareem Hunt, but he's not been maybe the starter, the single guy. He's done very well as kind of a dual threat position. But I would say for some of these other people, Odell Beckham Jr., everyone thought would be a star receiver on the Browns. Underwhelming. Myles Garrett, as good as he is, had a quieter season last season.
But he's a beast.
He's a beast.
He's a beast.
He's a beast. But he has yet to either be surrounded with the right players to bring them to the defensive level they need to win a Super Bowl, because they have Super Bowl talent.
They got talent.
Or they did, at least with Baker for a little while.
They still have talent, though.
They do. If
They
Deshaun
still
Watson
have-
plays
If Deshaun Watson plays, they got talent around them that they can play well.
in a big way.
I mean, there's still a lot of up in the air about that team and about obviously the organization and everything, and it always seems to be the Browns, right? But again, I think if you're the Browns and you're the Panthers, I think, the Browns probably wanted more. I should say definitely wanted more. I think the biggest thing was something that you referred to was the money aspect as well. I mean, granted, Panthers were trying to get Baker Mayfield for pennies on the dime, and they kind of did.
And they did.
They kind of did. I read somewhere it was they try to get $7 million off
Yeah.
instead of the $3.5 million that they ended with. They try to get even more off, but they just. I guess the Panthers went in there and said, we don't think he's even worth that much.
Which it's kind of remarkable to me, because when you look around the league, especially with some of the rumblings coming out of teams like the 49ers, for instance, you hear that Jimmy G is going to leave. The Jets have had reliable problems. I mean, maybe they've got...
yeah.
Yep. But there's a couple of teams.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Jimmy G, I think I think that's another possibility to go for the Browns. Speaking of the Browns, if Deshaun Watson doesn't play and can't play, I should say, gets suspended, they have, other options. Not many, obviously, but I mean, Jimmy G is a solid quarterback. We've seen this. He can play. Again, he's Baker Mayfield pretty much. I'd relate him very much to Baker Mayfield. And I would say that it would be a good situation if Jimmy G went there. Again, it's an iffy situation because there's other teams that could get him. But, I mean, the Seahawks were one of those teams that were looked at and might have thought that they were in the running for Baker Mayfield. But in the end, they like Drew Lock, which, again, is another quarterback that, in my head at least, is one of those decent quarterbacks that I just don't feel like is going to get you anywhere.
You do get the impression that you've kind of seen his ceiling.
Yeah.
In some ways.
And I think that's with a lot of quarterbacks. I mean, I mean, again, maybe I'm saying it because Aaron Rodgers is my quarterback, but there's a lot of quarterbacks I truly feel, again, in our division even, like Kirk Cousins, I definitely feel is one of those bridge quarterbacks, obviously better than a bridge quarterback, I shouldn't say bridge, but a decent quarterback that it seems like he just can't get past that great, like to that elite.
It is
level.
interesting that the Browns would put out so much money and then take on still a huge part of the Baker Mayfield contract when, as you brought up, they kind of have the ideal system for Jimmy Garoppolo or someone of that caliber. You've got two really fantastic running backs. Jarvis Landry is an excellent wide receiver, plus, a pretty good receiver core around him, some talented tight ends. As much as you want the star quarterback, when it comes to investment in your team and where you want to put the money, they've already put a lot of money into these other people. If they want to boost the defense as well around Myles Garrett, maybe get some better cornerbacks to round it out, a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo might be who they need. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo has been to a couple of Super Bowls, at least one.
One Super
He's
Bowl.
been to a Super Bowl.
Won some games.
He has a fantastic way higher win percentage than you would think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it is baffling to me that, I mean, you look at the league as it is, and I guess that also kind of goes back to it though. Maybe the Browns were gonna cut Baker Mayfield, and I mean, you get that dead salary, that dead cap. So they were thinking, oh, we're already going to take that cap anyway, cut him. So maybe they're just like, okay, you know what? We'll pay it anyway and just get a 5th-round pick.
I still think a little bit premature on their part. I think that they got really excited with the winning season, making it to playoffs, and felt that this was the team. This was not the year, but maybe the era that the Browns come back into their own. And began to get too disillusioned maybe too fast. Began to fear too much, another Johnny Manziel situation, and moved on from Baker Mayfield. If they get Deshaun Watson, as they have, but if he plays, and he plays like he did at the Texans, they will do fantastic, I think.
And that's what you have to expect that at this point.
Exactly. And so I think it is true. If Deshaun Watson plays over Baker Mayfield, he would perform better, I think. I think that is an improvement.
But then again, he hasn't played. He didn't play last year.
He hasn't played in a year. There's a lot of big questions for him. It's a gamble, but it's surprisingly a win big, lose big gamble.
Huge.
There's not
huge.
Yes,
because think about it. Think about if you lose. If you don't have Deshaun Watson, again, quarterback's Jacoby Brissett, great backup.
Yes.
As we, again,
possibly a winning season. With
state guy, so we love him. We can't, we have to rock with him and everything. But I truly believe he is a great backup, and I think the quarterback backups are so important. I mean, we've seen it throughout years of watching football. You see the starter go down, especially Aaron Rodgers go down, and you have no backup, and you just lose, and you can't recover, and you have to throw in the towel.
Right.
Whereas if you have a good backup, again, Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield is going to be the backup quarterback in Carolina. That is a great backup quarterback.
Right.
And so you have to look at the situation and think, okay, either way we have a good backup quarterback. But again, you have to be very careful if you're the Browns, because obviously they've committed.
They went in big.
They went in big. There's no turning back at this point.
Yep.
Once they traded away Baker Mayfield, they really are all in on Deshaun Watson.
And it would
just
be,
have to be.
I think part of it would be one thing if they got Deshaun Watson cheap, and then any kind of return for Baker Mayfield. The most surprising thing to come out of all of this is how they managed to hold themselves up into two corners where they paid more than they should have by all measures for a quarterback currently under criminal lawsuit.
Yeah.
And with no sure outcome. And then they got very, very little for the number one overall draft pick, Heisman-winning quarterback who has playoff experience
and has gotten better.
Winning seasons. Yes,
I truly believe that he has gotten better. If
in
anything
many
else,
metrics. Yeah.
if anything else, hasn't gotten worse. He
He had a bad season.
He had a bad season,
Some
and that
rocky
happens.
moments, but
And that happens. But the thing is like you can't. I'm very wary. I mean, it is the Browns. We have to look at this, and maybe the Browns are like, you know what, we lose all the time, so maybe we're just going to go for it.
Yes.
And just say, you know what, we're going to push it. And if this doesn't work, we'll just draft someone number one.
It is a bit of a head scratcher though, and does make you wonder if the Browns still have some front office issues that they need to figure out. I mean, they've cleared up the coaching situation, I think, for now. It seems like they have at least a plan for a solid coach moving forward.
Which I think it is Kevin Stefanski. I'm pretty sure, may have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure it's Kevin Stefanski, and he was, again, the ex-Viking offensive coordinator, I'm pretty sure. And I think he's a great coach. I think, like you said, showed a lot of promises and is trying to put them to that next level. It just is, if they can, just as an organization, I think you get experience.
Yep.
And I mean, you just have to, break down those barriers and just continue to. Again, you could lose a lot, but just building that pedigree of that winning pedigree and just getting to that next level is such a huge thing, I think, in sports.
And I wonder in some ways, because it's a mental game, of course, on the field, but there also has to be some element of mental game and confidence in the trading market as well amongst the GMs. And you wonder if organizations like the Browns, like the Jets, like the Giants, ones that are consistently disappointing in their trades and in their signings or the way that they use them, if there's now almost an organizational mentality that they have to shake, that they are a losing or an underdog organization, that they constantly underperform. And so even though you have a quarterback with at least a couple good seasons under their belt and a great college career, a lot of promise, not that old, right? I mean, he's not like an aged quarterback. A couple of injuries, but there's no reason.
He's in his mid to late 20s. Like he's like 26. He's not old.
Exactly. There's no reason to assume that someone like Baker Mayfield wouldn't benefit from maybe a scenery change, right? That plug him into another system, he could have a great season and then start doing really good. Like I mean, I'm sure there should have been lots of people. The New Orleans Saints, I could see, would want him. The Panthers clearly wanted him. But teams that have the Browns would be another good one, right? That have, or not the Browns, the Bears. The Bears should have.
The Browns needed them.
The Bears.
The Bears have a quarterback. I mean, I really believe, looking at Justin Fields, I mean, that's a small tangent, but I feel like he has a bright future. I think he gets more time in that system. I think he is a bright future quarterback, even though he isn't, again, in the division that I'm in. But I remember when they did draft him, I was like, that's not a bad pick. They got him a little later, so they didn't have to pay him as much, but I think it's a solid pick.
Right. Yeah, and he had a good college career as well. But just as far as someone tested, I'm just saying for organizations that have a lot of key components already in place, like the Bears have had, I don't know if any more, but they had a pretty good wide receiver core for a little bit.
It's a little iffy now. Allen Robinson's gone.
Exactly, and the defense has aged since
Khalil Mack's gone.
Exactly, yep. And so they kind of squandered that opportunity, I guess. But there's a lot of teams that have the basis and they just need a quarterback that should have been interested.
A lot of teams
Should have, especially if the Browns were willing to take as much of that salary as they did. You would think a lot more teams would have an interest in someone like Baker Mayfield.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, you again though.
Like the Packers, for instance, desperate need.
Desperate need.
Desperate need of a
You know, you never know what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
But again, but you say this though, and you think, okay, that team's a quarterback away, but it's Baker Mayfield, that quarterback to get him to that next level. Like you say that, but what? Like, I have a hard time believing that. Again, we might see that differently, but is Baker Mayfield the player that will take a team and consistently play well to the end and then win in the postseason? Again, maybe that's why the Browns were like, okay, we'll get rid of him. We gave him enough chance, which I don't think they did. But maybe that's what the Panthers are going to find out, is that they can build a great team around him, but maybe Baker Mayfield just won't make that step to make it to that next level.
Possibly. But you know Sam Darnold will not make that step.
But I think the Panthers trading for Baker Mayfield was obviously super smart. I think giving him a change of scenery, less money, not really paying him as much, and just
losing 1 5th-round pick.
1 5th-round pick, really
Unbelievable deal.
Unbelievable deal. I think it only bodes well. I don't think there's any way that you can say that the Panthers lost that trade. Even if he turns out to be a very poor quarterback, you just say, okay,
you're
we
one
lost
pick
it.
away. What would you lose in the 5th round?
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing.
Yep. I think 100% they have improved at quarterback.
Oh yeah, and I think that's another thing is, I think Sam Darnold is going to be the backup. I don't think that Baker Mayfield will be behind Sam Darnold. Maybe within the first week or two, because Sam Darnold does have that experience under his resume or whatever, that he has that year with the Panthers. So maybe they're going to give him that first initial shot.
Right.
But it's one of those things where it's like once he plays poorly, Baker Mayfield's right behind you.
Yes.
And I don't know sometimes that bodes well, sometimes that doesn't. But, you can see that when there is a quarterback right behind him ready to play, that quarterback has to play well, and sometimes it does happen. Sometimes they play really well, and sometimes they don't. Aaron Rodgers is an example of that. Obviously Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback, but when they got Jordan Love, he's had back-to-back MVP seasons.
Right.
So that I don't know if that was the intent of the front office, but
I think not.
But he's played obviously amazing, and again, we can look at the playoffs, and which is disappointing as a Packer fan. It is disappointing to look at the playoffs, but we're talking about quarterbacks, and I believe that Aaron Rodgers is obviously really good, but I believe that Baker Mayfield has a chance this year to really prove a lot, especially apparently the Browns that they made the mistake of choosing someone else, because I feel like Baker Mayfield's going to take that step. I believe that they're going to make the playoffs. There is another, additional spot in the playoffs.
I think the Panthers are very, very well poised to make the playoffs.
The only problem is how well are the Buccaneers going to play?
And again,
I don't know if they're going to win
this. It's one of those situations where
the division.
He retired, now he's back. At some point, you would think there's going to be the season. Tom Brady does not play up to his potential. Drew Brees had that in his last season. It was a stark fall off compared to the prior seasons where he was still playing at that level. Tom Brady has amazingly staved off Father Time. easy to eat my words. I mean, he might continue to do that
And that,
until he retires. But there's always that question
Mm-hmm.
that looming out there is potentially he's an injury away, like a big hit away from
Yeah.
just a poor season, or one of his star receivers. That's the other thing, is it can't be understated how good his receiving core has been.
and that's the thing is, like, I mean, obviously, Tom Brady's a great quarterback and everything, but I mean, who else is in your division? It's
The Falcons,
the Falcons
And
and
the
the
Saints.
Saints.
both
So-
not looking very good right now.
I would say so. I mean, the Falcons are going to have a rookie quarterback with Ryder or something like that, I think, out of Cincinnati, I think is the rookie quarterback. But they're going to have a rookie quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And then, again, the Saints are going to have Mr. 30.
Yes,
30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions.
which again,
Which is, again, a
he's-
hit or miss.
He could do excellent.
Jameis
Maybe he's
Winston
made
is
the
going to
step.
be a hit or miss quarterback, and you never know.
You never know.
You look at all his workout videos and you think, man, that guy puts in that work. But then he goes on the field and he's a real hit or miss. That is one of
Yes.
the most hit or miss quarterbacks you'll ever see.
And he hits every miss.
He hits everything.
Yeah, he doesn't miss the misses either. And so that's
So
the
really,
big shame.
I believe that you guys are better than both those teams.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a
I think so.
Panthers versus Buccaneers. Who's going to win that division? And again, you don't have to win the division to make the playoffs. You can be a 3 because it's the division leaders or division winners, and then the top 3 teams after that.
Yes.
So I believe
Very possible. Very,
That-
in some ways, disappointing if we don't make playoffs.
I would say
very
it's
disappointing.
disappointing.
I
I
think
would
if
say
you get a guy like Baker Mayfield, especially with the talent we have,
Two
have not
amazing wide
traded
receivers, really.
exactly. Have not traded Christian McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
So if he plays, hopefully most of a season, we have a young but promising defense.
That's what I was going to say.
Some
I think
very
a
promising
big
players
thing.
on the defense.
I think the big thing for you guys will be. I mean, you guys have
Do they make the
a
jump?
really young defense, but also a very sketchy offensive line. I think that's something that we'll
That is
definitely
the
have to look at.
And so, in some ways, that will be something we'll have to look at, and that I think the first couple of games will show a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield hopefully has the experience. I feel pretty confident that he will get the start over Sam Darnold.
I would think so.
I would think so. I feel that.
But like I said, I feel like the only way he doesn't is if the Panthers believe that Sam Darnold has that year, so maybe he deserves it. But I don't think.
They may believe.
I don't.
I
Think
do
that's
not.
The thing. Exactly. I don't think that's the way to go. I don't think that's the way. I don't think you deserve in the NFL. I think you either are the better player or not. I think there's no like whoever's the best player starts. I don't think you can say, okay, this person deserves it. I don't think that's right. I think whoever's the best needs to go out there and perform.
Yeah, I agree. So moving on then to there, we've covered I think pretty extensively one big trade, but there is another big trade across the pond in the NBA.
Across the pond in the NBA, yeah.
There was another big trade. There's been a couple of trades,
Yeah.
couple of big signings, but
Yeah.
the big rumblings that I mean, other than some of the drama and rumors, which we can get to in a minute, but the big definitive trade that we gotta talk about is the winning brilliant organization at the Minnesota Timberwolves has traded away ostensibly their future capacity to draft players as well as many role players for Rudy Gobert. Your
Yeah.
thoughts?
I mean, I just think we talked about this a little earlier, but I think the issue is you just said it. Their future.
Yes.
For someone that is a good player. No, don't get me wrong, he's a great player. He's he is a great defender. He is fantastic. But are the Timberwolves at a point right now where they are a center away from the championship?
And I guess it would make sense if you were a team, staying local, like the Charlotte Hornets, that desperately need a center.
Desperately.
You trade away some role players, some picks, and you hope that fixes it. But for a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves, I mean, it would be like the Warriors trading away all their draft picks and a bunch of role players for a point guard. Their best player on the Timberwolves is their center. And it has been said that Karl Anthony Towns is the best shooting center in the league. But it also should be noted that the only person who has said that is Karl Anthony Towns.
I was about to say
and
that.
So, maybe you take his word for it.
I mean, it's a head scratcher to say the least, because you look at those types of trades and you would think, again, it's one of those trades where they have no one and they just want a star in their organization just to have some, fans
Yes.
in the stadium to watch the games, because it's one of those situations where you have, like you said, you already have Karl Anthony Towns. D'Angelo Russell's a solid player. You have some pieces, but they're not like amazing. They're not the, you're so used to with the big three and everything, starting, with the Miami Heat and all these other teams. You're used to three megastars teaming up and, having a couple good, decent role players around them. Whereas now, the Timberwolves got rid of their decent role players for someone, again, that's not a superstar.
And I understand that they want to improve their defense. But I think the number one problem they have is not so much that they can't ask Karl Anthony Towns to step up. Because as a player of that caliber has to step it up in the paint. Even if you put a guy like Rudy Gobert in there, who is excellent, or historically has been excellent on the defensive end, with the current makeup of the team, paired with the current trend of the NBA towards perimeter shooting as your number one scoring option, I don't see that many teams are going to really change their strategy up. They won't drive, sure, but they'll just shoot. And when you look at the teams that are making, the finals, I mean, you got the Bucks. They have some great shooters. You've got the Heat have a pair of really good shooters. The Suns have some great shooters. The Warriors.
You look. I was gonna say, you look at the Warriors and the Celtics, the two teams that were in the finals this past year. You look at them and say, really,
what is Rudy Gobert going to do?
You can't.
I mean, what did he do on the Jazz?
I mean, really look at it. If you looked at the game the playoffs or the finals, you could see that all the Warriors did and all teams do is put the big men in pick and rolls and try to have them guard.
Right.
And it is, for some reason, it's confusing or whatever for the big men to try to, especially hard, to stick with the point guards that are just so crafty, especially nowadays. Like, they're so fast. Like John Morant, even like the young point guards,
Exactly.
and even Steph Curry or whatever. That's someone that's a little older. They're just so quick.
Right.
That you have one step and they're past you. Yeah, okay. You have the length of the centers and everything, and they can get beat a little bit and then block it. But if you're out there on the perimeter, that's tough. Like, granted, yeah, Rudy Gobert is a great defender, but is he sticking with these point guards?
And I think the question is, too, it would be one thing, again, if it was a team that needed a center. But their best player is their center.
And I think that's the biggest point of this trade, I think, is, again, they put away all these draft picks, and like you said, if you were the Charlotte Hornets, that makes sense. But when you have a center already, and it's not like, oh, he's Giannis, he's someone like that can go to different positions or whatever. They're both centers.
They're centers. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns could play the four, but it's still a crowded position. I mean, you can't. You could, but it's kind of a waste to move him to a wing position. It does not make sense. I mean, what would we say if 2 years ago, or partway through last year, I guess I should say, if the news came out that the 76ers had traded Ben Simmons and like a couple of draft picks for Rudy Gobert? I think a lot of people would say, really? Rudy Gobert playing with Joel Embiid? Why? Or same thing with Nikola Jokic. Why? That's a guy that you could move with his versatility to the four position. I mean, he could, but why? Why would you give up so much stuff for him? Rudy Gobert is as popular as he is. We have to remember is yes, he might be like 13, 14 rebounds a game when he's the only center on your team.
That's the other thing.
It's going to drop. Let's say he keeps that. Let's say he keeps 13 to 14 rebounds a game. He is then at max about a 15 points per game player. Not bad, but what did they give up for him? Their third best player, arguably, plus multiple role players, plus 5 first-round draft picks over the next couple of years for a player that will get, yes, 2 blocks. That's good. 14 rebounds, but it's not like he will be necessarily the star that will turn the tide of their game. They will still be looking to Karl Anthony Towns. They will still
You would think.
look to D'Angelo Russell for that. You almost wonder if they're hoping to flip him for something, because it is just, which they won't. They clearly don't.
There's
they can't,
so much they give up.
and they gave up so much for him. They could never profit from it. But it is unbelievable to me.
And you look at that trade and you think, could they have given up the same thing for Kevin Durant?
Right. Who
And-
is now demanding a trade and would probably
And
cost
would've-
less. Like, what if Kevin Durant goes for less than 4 players and 5 first-round picks? Oh, did it?
Hold on, you can keep talking now.
Well, if the camera's dead.
We have other batteries. Actually, I need to plug in my laptop anyway. I thought it was going pretty well.
What's going on?
What's the time on this so we know when to cut it?
Where's the time?
43 minutes. I have to figure out if we can just plug this thing in instead of using batteries. There's got to be another way.
There has to be another way.
I think it's going well though.
I think it is.
I mean, I think we're gonna get more comfortable as obviously as.
Yeah. Find the tone, find the talking points.
Mhm. Yeah, let me plug in my laptop as well. And maybe like when there's like commercial, we can do like have like commercial breaks, whatever. Commercial break. Yeah, when on the commercial breaks we'll have. Oh, it's not. That's right. On the ad break.
the Manscaped commercial. Brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends.
Yeah. I think we can talk for like 15 more minutes on this and then wrap it up.
That. I mean, we don't. It's almost there.
Yeah.
We've kind of gone through it. You get there.
Let me go. What am I doing? Why am I doing like this? It's a freaking surge detector. I can add multiple on here. think we should still put it up.
Uncut?
But like after we get like another one, I'd say we record a second one. You know what I'm saying? And like put them both up at the same time. I'll cut it down. Are you in the frame now? Or are you kind of out of it?
I'm in the frame. I'm in the frame. Yeah.
Do a little bit of this section. Is Kevin Stefanski the coach of the Browns?
That sounds right. Yeah. I'm pretty sure he is.
That's what I would say.
If you say it, it's true. I'm trying to find the stream.
What?
Trying to find the stream
Oh.
and just make sure, right?
Yeah.
And see how many people are like in the chat right now. Hey, throw flames in the chat. If you're in, throw flames.
You found it?
Oh my gosh.
We're number one.
Oh,
We're number one on trend.
we're trending. 4 subscribers. Home.
Videos?
I don't see anything.
Let's look back.
Are we live? Are we actually live?
Yeah. 49 minutes.
What is it called?
Unless I'm not.
What is the live stream?
It's called Carolina Packers Podcast Live Stream.
Carolina Packers
Podcast.
podcast live stream.
Is it because it's not? Oh. Let's try.
How many viewers then do we have in the chat?
No, because I forgot to put it on public.
Carolina Packers. Still nothing.
Interesting.
Here it is.
Oh, there it is.
How many viewers do we have now? 1 watching now. Started streaming 50 minutes ago, but 100% like rate. I like this. All right.
Anyway, let's get back to the talking points.
Yeah, so we were, before the camera interrupted our broadcast with its own complaint and self-demolition.
Exactly.
In some ways, I think the camera was just listening and metaphorically reenacted the Minnesota Timberwolves front office for a moment there and fell on its own sword.
It tried.
And yeah, it tried to make a trade for the batteries and realized that it just perished in the process.
It had an attempt,
I will be waiting to see the betting line for the Minnesota Timberwolves getting first rounded if they even make it to playoffs.
They'll make it to the playoffs.
With the more liberal playoff expansion,
Yeah,
they should.
they'll make the
If they do not, this will truly go down as one of the F trades of NBA history.
Oh, yeah.
I think the big point was just what other team with a center could you see a trade like this going through that there would not be complaints? I think the only
Not
thing.
any complaints.
I mean, it's like the only thing that I think
Bam.
gives this a little bit of a trade wiggle room is just that they don't have any defensive players.
Yeah. I think if you have, I'm trying to think of an offensive center in the league that just is not a defensive
What
person.
about Christian Wood?
Christian Wood's a good shout. He actually, I want to say he just got. Oh, what team is he on? Is he on the Mavericks?
He is, which is a team that is looking scary.
Scary.
In the Western Conference.
Their starting lineup is scary.
And really, they would have been scarier if Kristaps Porzingis had been more consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he had been who he was at the New York Knicks prior to that injury, I think their playoff run was already deeper than expected, just shouldered by Luka.
It has to be said, yeah.
And so if they pair him with a big man down low, especially like Christian Wood, a guy that's got hands, very versatile, fast, can play at the pace, is open to those kind of like Russell Westbrook drive and dish last second decisions that Luka has adopted for himself, because he is the next kind of like triple double guy. He's the next person of that caliber, but he's bigger than Russell Westbrook. He's more of like a Magic Johnson almost. He's got, I think, the potential for a better shot. His ceiling with a team built around him is right now. I mean, Russell Westbrook had a good shot at the Oklahoma City Thunder when Kevin Durant was there, but Luka has shown that potential without that Kevin Durant, that if you paired him with someone like that, I think you've got.
I mean, as much as Zion was the talk of the town when he came in, and Luka's obviously been a superstar since then, and it's definitely been talked about a lot, but I think he is definitely probably the best young player at the moment, and I think is the future of the NBA at the moment. Again, it could change, but he's really good. And again, hopefully Zion comes back and is healthy as ever. But I think that's big.
You know, on that, as a segue before we wrap up, kind of a segment about the NBA, just like young players that have shown talent. Of course, there's the big names. John Morant.
I was going to say John Morant is the other
Zion, Luka. I mean, you see these bedrock players. But one of the ones that surprised me when you pointed it out, that's sort of the antithesis of that idea, and that we saw kind of firsthand in the finals and then in the lead up to the finals, is you always hear thrown around in that group Jason Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
And once you brought it up and I started watching, I do have to say Jaylen Brown is just as good in many respects.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's true, some of his averages slightly lower, couple of like a bucket or two lower, but his consistency is always there. And so Jason Tatum, he'll put up 50 points for you every so often. But when he's not putting up 50 points, he might be dropping 10 points on 3 for 18 or something like that.
And that's the big thing.
Unbelievably bad shooting a couple of nights. And
I mean, that's when you look at the past playoffs and especially the championship series, you look at it and really it wasn't Jason Tatum's best showing.
No.
Like he is talked about a lot, and you can hear in the announcements and the announcers that they really obviously love him, and he is the star player on that team. But really, if you boil it down, it's Jaylen Brown. As much as I love Jason Tatum, and I think he's great
the closer.
player,
Jaylen Brown is the closer for that team.
Closer.
He is the dagger for that team. And I also have to say, a couple of points that I was wrong about, that I was very skeptical about the Celtics for, was a couple of years ago when they signed their contract extension with Marcus Smart. I was a little bit skeptical. I mean, for the first couple of years in the league, especially coming out of his college career, you always heard him described as the guy that brings the hustle. And I'm always really skeptical of the euphemistic description of players and the intangibles and all that kind of stuff, right? Because at some point, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I feel like you do have to be able to, in a game like basketball that has a clear measure for how you win, You have to be able to tie down what it is that makes a player good. And he's a good defender, but he was kind of an offensive liability. And I have to give him credit and the organization credit that over the last few years, he has amazingly turned himself into a three-point shooter, not always super consistent, but of the kind that you have to respect. Every so often, he will put up 20 or so points. I was, again, skeptical of the trade of Kemba Walker, who, I knew from the Hornets, was excellent, was the only player we're talking about for years. Even when they did terribly, they traded him 1-for-1 for Al Horford, who I viewed as like an aging center from the Thunder at the time. Again, Al Horford showed that he had kind of a veteran sensibility, was maybe not a big man to be talked about in the top 10, but for the Celtics, which is already a tall team, was very capable down low, brought some poise, some defense, did more than I expected him to, and what they asked him to. And so when you look at those players, in some sense, I think if you took away Marcus Smart's improvement in Al Horford's addition, and instead you just turn your eyes to Jason Tatum as the main point guard, he might start to look a little less impressive under scrutiny. I mean, remember, they had Kyrie Irving, and then they replaced him with Kemba Walker, both a little bit disappointing, very disappointing as point guards. They didn't replace kind of the all-star point guard at the Celtics. They just said, well, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown can sort of trade off in that ball-handling role. And the most surprising thing for me, especially with the salary, the name recognition, is how Jaylen Brown was the most consistent aspect of that. And I think it does beg the question, how long can they operate that ship kind of unequally yoked where one person, Jason Tatum has to next season be the star that he is claimed to be, or they need to start claiming Jaylen Brown as the star he is, or I think one or both of them will leave. It's almost inevitable.
And it's sad because I really believe that they really complement each other really well.
They do. And maybe they can put the ego aside.
I think it's really great that they are such good. We're not saying Jason Tatum's a bad player. I think
by no means.
I think he is a great player. I think any team would love to have him on their team, obviously. Yes. I'm just saying that for all the hype, it's a little overrated, I'd say, but when you are rated so highly, it's easy to be overrated.
Right. It is his team, ostensibly, by reputation. But in actuality, he shares.
Yeah. I think that's the way to put it. I don't think Jaylen Brown is head over heels better than him. I just think they're comparable. I think maybe Jason Tatum is better, but I feel like the gap between Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown isn't that big.
It's not the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson relationship, and it's not the.
And I think that's a great I think point, is because I think that's looked at it the same. I think everybody looks at Steph Curry as like one of the best, which he is.
Right.
And I think they look at Jaylen Brown and Klay Thompson in that same breath of like,
the ideal number two.
They're great. They're great shooters. They're great players, and they can drive to the basket even, and they're just really good defenders too. Like they're great defenders, and I think that's the perfect way to look at it. Is that Jaylen Brown is a great player, but I think he is almost at that same level as Jason Tatum, and they're both really young. And I think they have very bright futures, especially if they're going to be together. And I think that Celtics team is going to be back in the finals, especially if they continue to improve. And I think, obviously, Al Horford at some point is going to retire, and that's going to be a big loss. But if they can replace someone, which, again, I would think it's pretty easy to replace an Al Horford type of person. But, even though, again, Celtics love him and everything. But I truly believe that you're a young team. Like, the most... the person that's been there the longest as of now is Marcus Smart, which is quite impressive to look at.
Not even 30, I don't think.
No. And so that's the thing is like you look at those things and you say, oh, well, they're a young team, and they went to the Eastern Conference Finals a while back when it was against LeBron, and again, didn't come out on top. But then, of course, they've made the step now to the finals.
In the finals, they have a finals under the belt.
They have the experience, and they went up against Steph Curry on a roll.
Essentially, I mean,
granted, it's a great team.
Yes, and it's not just. Yes, it's not the Warriors of your 2017 kind of 2016 era Warriors. You've got Kevin Durant on the team, but it is essentially just a little bit aged. Draymond Green is not the same player, but it is the same team as that legendary 2015 season.
And I think you have to talk about Andrew Wiggins. Like, come
Plus, on. Yes, Andrew Wiggins is frankly playing better than offensively better than Draymond Green has ever played in his career.
And that's the thing is
he's playing his best basketball.
And I remember when that trade went through for him to go there. Right. I remember looking at that trade and thinking, man, Andrew Wiggins was a household name coming out of Kansas, was just a great player in general, and just is like
amazing athlete.
Amazing. And he had played so well, and it was just so confusing when they got him. From what I remember, wasn't that much from my reaction.
D'Angelo Russell.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So, again, I feel like Andrew Wiggins is a great defender as well.
That is the parity that he brings.
And then all of a sudden, I don't know if it's all of a sudden, but very much so in the finals just showed up. Was elite. And really, honestly, if it was up to me, was pretty either outperformed or was on that same level as Jason Tatum.
Yes. Well, you've got a large wingspan wing player, right, with a good shot, the ability to drive, ball handling skills, comparable athleticism. I mean, Andrew Wiggins, I believe he holds the record for the highest vertical jump in the NBA rookie combine or whatever. When they go,
I have to look into that.
I'm pretty sure it's like him and Zion.
Zion, I was going to say, was the other one I was thinking.
Yep, I think it's those two, or maybe they're flipped, but they're top
about 40, two. Probably about around 40-inch.
Yeah, and when you think about it, you would go, oh yeah, Zion, but then Andrew Wiggins, just based on his career. But in some ways, Andrew Wiggins has not been a bad player so much as there's been a sense of disappointment.
And I think that's the best way to put it.
Based on how he's been a little bit under his potential. But he must have averaged like 20-something points last season or close.
He just was a stud.
I mean, when you've got a team like that, where Steph Curry, against all odds, is still just dropping threes.
And again, I think the other biggest thing is with Klay Thompson coming back from injury and
amazingly coming back
and is great.
Yes,
but it also, with Andrew Wiggins playing as well as he did, it took pressure off of the rest of the team.
Yes,
like granted, okay, obviously Steph is going to get his points, his minutes, and everything. But you can take out Steph and put in Andrew Wiggins and say, hey, we need a basket, go get a basket. He can do that, and that's what teams need. Teams need someone that is outside of their superstar, can go get them a bucket, just give that star player rest. Because you don't want a star player to play the whole entire game, especially at Steph's age.
Right.
But, I mean, obviously, when Steph was in, Steph was automatic, really. It was very fun to watch. And just when he would bring up the ball and you would think, okay, he can shoot from anywhere. He can shoot.
And will shoot from anywhere.
And will shoot from anywhere. And that's the best thing is because, like, you think he's – gosh, in the finals, he just shot so well. It was like every single time he shot, you would always think, oh, this is about to go in. There was, and again, some he missed, but it just seemed as if it was just the Warriors obviously to lose, and they didn't. But I mean, you saw even in that first game where they lost because of Celtics like complete dominance. I remember watching the game and thinking, man, the Warriors should feel good about themselves because, the Celtics came back in that fourth quarter with an unbelievable comeback.
Yeah.
But I still looked at it and thought, the Celtics got hot. It's going to need to be that for 4 games.
Yes.
They did it once, but they couldn't do it for 4 games, and I think
it's really hard to outshoot the Warriors.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's the trouble. Is you look at it, and Steph had one bad game in the finals, one bad game, and they still won that game.
And in some sense,
another player stepped up. again, this time it was I think it was Jordan Poole, but also really Andrew Wiggins. But like when your star player plays poorly, you have to have the rest of the team pick it up.
Yes.
And again, the Celtics couldn't do that every single time.
In some ways, I think one of the great lessons that could come out of this, depending on what ends up happening, but right now, I don't know how you felt about the finals. The Warriors don't look like a team that's not going to be good next year.
They're going to be.
Right? They're going to be fantastic.
And you know what?
They could be in the finals again, and they
think
could
they will
win
be.
it again.
You know what's the crazy part is they were missing their center.
Yes.
Wiseman was out.
No, Wiseman is
was
a
out.
great center.
And
a great talent, young talent.
And really, you look at that team, and what was missing from that championship run was the Celtics could dominate.
They were
with
hot,
Robert
they were
Williams.
taller. Yes.
With Robert Williams, put Robert Williams in there, and they really, I wouldn't say dominated. Obviously, they lost, but really showed that they could play and play well in the center position. But you throw in Wiseman in there, a guy that they, again, had a bad year. One year the Warriors had a bad year because of injuries, and all of a sudden they get a lottery pick.
Yes.
And it's just, you reload.
And so, the fact is that the teams out of the West right now that look the scariest, you've got like the Grizzlies and the Mavericks. I think going into next season, I mean, you could toss a couple other teams. Well, no, the Clippers. Okay, assuming
I was gonna say
the Clippers.
Clippers are gonna
Again,
be
that is the wild card. The Clippers on paper, I think, are
Have to be
favorites.
good. Yeah.
They have to be good, but you've got
What
Paul
about
George.
what about the Lakers?
And you know what? I won't count out LeBron. I won't
can't.
count. You can't count them out. So it's a crowded West, as it always is, But you've got a team like the Lakers, older, had a tough last season.
And that's the thing is
Injuries.
I don't think they got better.
I don't think so either. You've got the Clippers, again. Kawhi Leonard, a generational player. Paul George, one of the best. He'll go down, I think, as one of the great number 2,
Oh yeah,
like wingmen players. You know,
great defender.
Great defender. Adding John Wall, if he brings anything that he
Wall.
brought to the
If he
Wizards,
plays.
if he plays. But this is the big question. All 3 of those guys have missed significant
big 3.
time for injuries. So assuming they're all healthy, they can all play together, they can mesh, they are a potentially dominant championship-winning team. But the Warriors are still the Warriors, and they're scary, and they've been there. And you've got a guy like Paul George has struggled in playoffs, has struggled in championships, right?
And you have to look at that Warriors team, and what they always go for is 3-and-D.
Yes.
Is just 3-point shooters with great defense.
Yes.
And you get Otto Porter Jr., another player that isn't talked about, that is just a great player. And it's one of those things where they take off Steph Curry, they take off, all these other Klay Thompson, they take off these players, and they have someone right behind them that can shoot 3, can run around, get open shots, and play really well. And it is a scary team, and I think people forgot about them. Not necessarily forgot about them, but because of the injuries and because of the off couple of years they had, they are like, oh, they're not going to be the best. But in reality, they are the Warriors. They're still the Warriors, and they're still going to play amazing.
And I think one of the big things that could come out of this Warriors resurgence, this like later era, Steph's older, but they look like they could make another run next year, 2 years, right? Depending on how healthy he stays.
I mean, yeah.
I think you have to make comparisons to the Chicago Bulls and the break period where Michael Jordan was retired, right? And the team essentially resets as the Warriors were forced into doing, with Steph Curry being injured for significant time, losing Kevin Durant. And then after a couple-year lapse, you bring back your core, and now you've got this fresh blood like Michael Jordan. They had the core again. Scottie Pippen was there, but they had also added a couple of players. They had added a couple of role players.
I mean, you have to look at that team and think, man, I would not be surprised if they win another 4 more championships.
Well, that might be a little much.
But really, But
You
really,
can't,
if you
as long as Steph can play, you can't count them out.
you can't because they are like okay, Draymond Green. Like really, what does Draymond Green do?
He
Like
passes the ball.
If you're honest with if you're honest with yourself, it's really Draymond Green, and you can really get rid of him.
Yes.
And you can replace him. You can replace him with a Marcus Smart. You can replace him with someone that's because really Draymond Green is to get into the other teams. Yeah, you can get into the other team's head with a player.
Yeah.
So that's a replaceable one. And then you have Steph, which again, like you said, maybe not. Maybe 4 is a little dramatic, but if you have Steph there and Steph playing at this level, I don't think it's a hard team to lose or team to beat, especially because Klay Thompson, again, Klay Thompson's a great shooter, one of the greatest shooters of all time, top 5, I'd say. And you look at that team, and if he comes off of the team, again, like I said, you have other great shooters on the bench. And again, I really believe, I mean, they have what? He has 4 or 5 rings. Curry?
4.
4 rings? So, I mean, you look at that and think, okay, he's getting onto that second hand. I could easily see him ending with 6, maybe 7 rings.
How old is he? 36?
I don't know.
35, 36?
Yeah, something like that. I would think so.
Guess it depends how good the team can be with him in a decreasing role. But good.
Yeah.
They're a solid team.
And really, I mean, shooters are a lot more different, right? Because Steph doesn't drop to the basket, doesn't really get hit often. I mean, really the biggest thing you have to worry about with shooters is landing, right?
Yes.
Is if once they shoot and they try to go for that landing, if they pop something, or especially with Steph's ankle injuries from the past, you have to look at that and think, okay, yeah, maybe there are injuries in the future, and maybe they don't win another one. But I just think health aside,
Yep. In some ways, we have not really seen a player like this, where the star player of a team is only a shooter, essentially, who can largely subsist in between the 2 3-point lines. I mean, he's running half the court. And in some ways, I would say that he is... LeBron has been transitioning into a shooter himself, which has been fascinating to watch.
Great.
How good he's been at it. But Steph, I would say, to draw like a corollary to something we have seen, he is sort of the Alex Ovechkin of the NBA.
Ooh, that's a good comparison.
Where as you age, Ovechkin, he just began to kind of drift in between the shots, right? And he would just hang out there at the top of the arc and go isolate, drive in a little bit if he had to, but he just had that shot.
But the thing is really, if you look at Steph Curry's game, you look at it and think, okay, he's a great shooter. So every single time I shouldn't say every single time, but if you're a defender, he goes for that pump fake, you have no clue if he's shooting or not.
That's right.
Like, he has the smallest amount of room, and he'll pull it. He'll shoot it. It does not matter.
Yeah.
So you really have to bite on that pump fake, because then once you bite on it, he, again, doesn't have to be fast at that point, because if the defender's in the air, you can easily pull around and do a midi, or even drive to the basket, do a little fake midi and drive to the basket. Like, I don't think he really opened up, as they say, his bag, enough in the playoffs. Because, like, he really could have done so much more driving. He could have done so much more, drive, kick, whatever that may be, because of how good the team is. And with how bad Klay played in the finals, like, he really struggled in the finals. You have to look at that and think, man, if Klay plays like Klay can play, that team is unstoppable. Again, barring injuries. But, again, it's unstoppable. Right. There's really no holes on that team.
No.
Other than Draymond Green, I'd say.
Which, it's not that they can't fill that hole.
No.
And in many ways, I think they could make an easy trade.
But I don't know if they will.
They won't. I don't think they will. I think that there's too much loyalty and culture there.
I'd say so.
And in a lot of ways, I'd say that's their strength.
I think so too. I think that's what again, there's flaws in that, but really, when you only have 5 players on the court at one time, that can be a plus. So, like, if you're looking at like football or whatever, and you have people that don't make trades, don't do any of that stuff, you kind of get messed up, and you can really fall into a pit with that just by leaning on what you've gotten and not really trade. But in basketball, you have 5 players on the court.
Yeah.
You build a roster that's really good and can pay them, and they can accept pay cuts or whatever that may be. You can really make a great team for a while.
And I think that we see the negative result of kind of the opposite theory. I think LeBron James and some of the team construction issues they've had there, or the Brooklyn Nets, I think are another great example of where you have all these people and you make it clear to them that you are here to win a championship. And you bring in a guy who was not a natural fit to the system, like Russell Westbrook. They trade so much for him. The only all-star players or really good players left on that team are LeBron and Anthony Davis in a lot of ways. They're out with injuries. They ask him, as he's aging, to carry the load. And you can see in the new system, and when he struggles, it gets to him. Because with a guy like LeBron James, he doesn't take sub-average performance, and he will totally push the GM to have you traded within the next year. Now, Russell Westbrook could enact that player option for $40 million and make himself untradeable, which he did.
Yep.
And so he will be in LA for the foreseeable future unless it is made painful enough that he leaves. But you've got that again in Brooklyn, where they open the door. And when you look at the Brooklyn Nets team, prior to the trade for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, I mean, they had Spencer Dinwiddie, who has been very good, very consistent, underrated on a lot of different teams.
I agree.
Always does pretty well. Jared Allen was on that team.
Very underrated.
Very underrated. A great young center. Joe Harris was there. Unfortunately, he was injured last year. Yeah. But they had a lot of young talent. They traded it all away. And then they opened a door and were bringing in people like LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, anyone that was kind of an age superstar that wanted a ring. Yes, that wanted a ring because they were so confident. It became the good old boys club. They had, I want to say, who else did they bring in? Superman, right? Or from the Clippers. You know,
it was, who was it? I don't know off the top of my head.
I can't. Good center of the past.
Of the past.
Again.
It wasn't Dwight.
No.
It wasn't Superman. When you said Superman, I thought it was Dwight Howard.
No, it was the other Superman. With that nasty dunk.
Oh, Blake Griffin.
No. The guy that played opposite Blake
I know
Griffin.
exactly what you're talking about.
On the
DeAndre Ayton. Or not, DeAndre Jordan, my bad.
Yeah, DeAndre Jordan, that's right. I was thinking Ayton as well. Yeah, DeAndre
right.
Jordan. He was on the team as well. And so you look at that and go, okay, we've got Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving when he plays, so half of Kyrie Irving. More like Kyrie Irving's left hand.
Left hand, yeah, exactly.
And then some aged superstars of the past. And not much else.
But even then, even with those aged superstars and everything, you expect so much more from the starters, from the stars.
Yes.
You would think Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving
could carry
alone could carry the team to at least the playoffs. There's no way you look at that again.
You have to start thinking about that. What was it? Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett trade, mid 2000s or something like that.
Yeah,
exact same scenario. End of their career, had a little bit of experience under the belt, wanted to play together. Big trades, disappointing outcome.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that's the thing, because you look at the situation and you think, well, I would say that Kevin Durant obviously is going to get a lot of trade capital for him. The Nets are going to get a lot for him.
Yeah.
And really, at this point, wouldn't you want to trade him away?
I think so. Because
really, if Kyrie's going to leave, because Kyrie again.
Well, he signed his player option, but that doesn't mean much. That doesn't mean much
because he was spotted in LA at a Sparks game, at a WNBA basketball game, the Los Angeles Sparks or whatever it is.
Oh, you think he's jumping leagues?
I think he's going to WNBA. This just in.
You heard it here on the Carolina Packers podcast. Rumor has it,
Kyrie Irving's making that jump.
making the jump to the WNBA.
But I think, really, if you were the Lakers, who would you rather have? Mr. Triple Double or Mr. No Show?
Well, if I'm the Lakers, in as much as I personally like Russell Westbrook, and I think he's unfairly lambasted for stuff that's not always his fault, but I think that if you're the Lakers, he's more of a physical driving player, which LeBron has been historically. They don't make sense together, and Kyrie Irving has won a championship with LeBron James. Now, here's the question. If you're the Lakers, do you move, if you can, Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis for the two of those guys?
No.
For Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving?
I'd say you do a straight-up swap. I would, if I was them, I would say
a 2 for 2 is what I'm saying.
Oh, a 2 for 2? I don't know.
Because that's what makes this whole deal so ridiculous is the rumors that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, after somehow doing nothing at Brooklyn, are demanding that they play together at a team already primed to win a championship.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like
they're already a super team, right?
They're like, because in and of themselves, they are a super team. Really, again,
allegedly.
A little past their prime, maybe.
Yeah.
But you look at this and think, okay, let's put this into perspective. You look at it and say, okay, you have Kyrie Irving, a straight up switch for Russell Westbrook. Would both teams do that?
If I'm the Nets, I actually do that.
I
because
would.
Russell Westbrook
has experience with KD.
Has experience with Kevin Durant. And the way I see it, Russell Westbrook, for his play style, who knows? I mean, at the Rockets, he didn't have a triple-double. Next year, he went to the Wizards, had a triple-double. Maybe he has it in his tank to do better when he's not playing with LeBron, right? And in the LA atmosphere, even if he's not a triple-double, if you can put him into a system where he's more of a drive, assist point guard, I think he's valuable, and he will show up to every game and play as hard as he can. Kyrie Irving is a savant the 20% of the games he plays.
Yeah, and so the thing is, if you look at the roster, especially for the Lakers, they need
a shooter. Yes.
They need shooting.
And they will not succeed until they have shooting.
Exactly. And so you look at it and say, okay, if you're the Lakers, give up Russell Westbrook, which, again, love Russell Westbrook, great player.
Doesn't make sense.
But does not make sense on that team.
Does not make sense on that team. Never made sense on that team.
No. And so you look at it and say, Kyrie Irving, granted, a better shooter, but also can drive just like Russell Westbrook, and is a facilitator and everything. Granted, not as dominant as a rebounder or a passer, maybe even, as Russell Westbrook, but really you don't need that.
No.
You look at AD and LeBron, both of those very good rebounders and very good passers.
Yes.
And you look at it, especially LeBron.
Yeah.
And so you look at the situation and think, okay, they don't need a Russell Westbrook. They need a shooter. Again, maybe Kyrie isn't the option. Maybe throwing this name out there, Devin Booker would be a great option.
If they could get him. If I'm the Suns, I don't trade him for anything.
Anything. Again, maybe not. That was the first thing that came to my head.
They need shooters, though.
They need it. And I think that's what the NBA is now. You saw it in the finals. You saw what team won. You can't. Threes are more than twos, right?
Yep.
So you can't stay with these teams, especially with how good of shooters there are out there. Whereas it's not really a challenge anymore to shooting a three-pointer. It's not like this is there's players making it around 40%. And really that's not much of a difference between players in the paint that shoot 50%.
The trade that I could see there's only a couple of players that I think the Lakers do need to trade Russell Westbrook.
Need to.
And when it comes to people that carry that kind of contract and where they make sense, one of the places that I think jumps out as being a potential fit where the Lakers might want someone that it's tough to know if the 76ers do want is if they swapped Russell Westbrook for James Harden. Russell Westbrook could fill kind of the role that Ben Simmons had there.
Yeah.
Playing with Joel Embiid, it's clear with how much Joel Embiid likes Jimmy Butler that in some ways the thing that he cares about the most as far as team chemistry is effort. And
Yeah.
if we know anything, James Harden is past his effort period. And so
Did he have an effort period?
I think he had a flop period.
He had a
But
flop period.
That took
It's
some
still-
effort, some time in front of the mirror. And I think that, that marriage is guaranteed to end poorly.
Yeah.
I don't see the current iteration of James Harden doing well with a guy like Joel Embiid in his prime if he continues to play with suboptimal effort. They've got some shooters on that team that they accumulated because Ben Simmons couldn't shoot at all. At least Russell Westbrook can hit a free throw. And he can bring effort, which is something to a team that already is good at defense. And so that would be like a really good fit, I think.
I think if you're the Lakers, I think you need
And James Harden can shoot, and that's
James
what
Harden can shoot.
and that's what the Lakers can.
James
do.
Harden can shoot.
Yes,
But again, he is older. He is an older
but wouldn't
man.
he just fit the mold?
He would. You are right. It would be definitely difficult to trade for
They're
someone
limited in their trade process
because they don't have many.
They could try to get John Wall. That's not going to happen.
But again, I don't even honestly. If I'm telling you the truth, I don't really know many Lakers other than the top three they have, the big three.
No,
And really,
maybe Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
that's what I was gonna
Is he
say.
still on that team?
Yeah, he's kind of their shooter, right?
Yeah.
But he doesn't shoot well. At least from what I've seen
He's off and
in
on.
the games. He's very off and on, very hit or miss, as they say. But you look at the Lakers. You can keep Russell Westbrook if you get a stretch five even, or someone that can stretch the floor, or a solid two that just is a Joe Harris even.
Yep.
Just like someone that is just so good at wide open threes or something like that. Because Russell Westbrook drives all the time.
Yep.
LeBron drives all the time. Someone that is so good at shooting, just spot up shooting, or even running around, and just can take that shot. That would be so great to have someone like that.
And if I'm the Lakers, I think I trade Anthony Davis.
Okay.
Because as much as I think Russell Westbrook, with his $40 million player option, is overpaid for what he brings, no one is more overpaid than a player that doesn't play, by definition.
Okay.
Anthony Davis, when was the last time he played anything close to a full season? He's always missing 20 or so games, sometimes over half the games, and he's just getting older.
But the thing about Anthony Davis is, I think, as of now, at least is either the best player on that team or the second best player on that team.
Second best.
I'd say
He's second
LeBron
best.
is number one. I'd still say LeBron's number
I think
one.
you have to.
But it's not when AD plays, he is amazing.
But he plays 30 games.
But the thing is what do you think is a
Let's say-
realistic trade for him?
Let's say you could trade him for 2 wing shooters.
Okay.
Right? That's the only thing that would matter.
I think-
if they
I
could
think-
get people let's say you could trade him.
Because is their center Dwight Howard?
It might be.
It might be
It might
Dwight
be.
Howard.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing is you look at that team, and again, a great deal for them would have been not to get rid of Brandon Ingram.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because they traded away Brandon Ingram for
What if you trade him for
AD.
Kyrie Irving?
I still think that's a bad trade
Kyrie Irving
because you have Kyrie and.
Joe Harris. No one's going to make that trade.
But then again, yeah, I don't think you do make that trade because again, where is Russell Westbrook going to play at that point? I'd say if you can
You'd have to
trade,
move them both
if
to
you can
shooting-
trade, yeah,
shooting guards.
if you can trade those two and get the 3 from Brooklyn
Oh,
and go
yeah.
Kyrie, KD,
And Joe
and
Harris.
Joe Harris,
Yeah.
and then put LeBron.
Yeah, but why would Brooklyn do that?
Brooklyn
they're not
would do
going to do that. No.
I mean, you know, that's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, like, but again, if you like, they just needed to get a shooter, and I don't think they have a shooter, and they're not going to go anywhere without a shooter. And as sad as it is, LeBron can do a lot, but and he's an average shooter, I'd say. He's
He
an
is their
average
shooter.
He is the shooter. That's the issue. That's the issue. Is because he's such a dominant driver of the basketball. It's tough to say that your best driver, I guess maybe Russell Westbrook is, but of one of your best drivers is also your best shooter at this point.
Only shooter.
Only shooter. Really. It's just not. It's not a good position to be in, is it?
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at teams, okay, especially with, like you said, we already listed teams in the West, and we're definitely missing some.
Yeah. Do you beat Luka?
Do you beat Luka?
Do you beat the Blazers
Do you
with
beat the
with
Blazers?
Damian Lillard if they have something around him?
I mean, you think about it. East is definitely an easier conference, right? I mean, granted, they still have the Bucks. You still have great teams, but I mean, you look at that and think, okay, compared to the West, they're just not as good. The East is just not as good of a conference as the West.
Right.
And I think that could cause a lot. I mean, again, you have to be a dominant team. Maybe the Lakers will make the playoffs. I don't know if they do. I don't know if they're a playoff team. It all depends on how healthy the team is. But I think the major thing is I don't know if the Lakers make the playoffs. They might make one of those play-in games,
Right.
especially now with the whole new, way they're doing the playoffs. They might make a play-in game, but I don't know if they're going to win that play-in game. You're banking on a lot of great performance from LeBron James, and again, he's old. He's older, I should say. He's not old.
Now, I do want to give a little bit of a compliment to the commentary here and give a shout out. I am currently aware that I have liked this video.
Oh, you have.
Have you liked our current stream?
I have not actually.
Well, shout out to the
Shout out to
two other likes
Other likes on
the
this
stream.
stream. I tell you what, it's beautiful.
And, well, if any of you happen to be residents of Packers, North Carolina, as I said, where we are streaming from, and that's the name, congratulations. I wish I could give you something other than the congratulations of this stream.
And I think it's big. I think really, honestly, you have Packers fans are very, very much everywhere. I mean, you run into Packers fans everywhere. Carolina fans not so much, but we are in Carolina.
Maybe Baker Mayfield will
Baker
change it.
Mayfield will change it. I feel very confident about that. But I feel like the Packers will definitely be a big plus, and I think are everywhere. And I think it's a good situation that we're in the great state of North Carolina as always.
I am intrigued. I mean, not to undersell this channel, but I am the only person watching the stream right now.
Yeah.
Who are you other two likes?
Ooh,
I just
that is interesting
we
to
gotta.
find out.
So
I'm excited.
just drop a comment.
Drop a comment
Drop
on
a
that.
comment. I would say drop a like, but you already have.
already
so,
have, yeah.
but subscribe.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this expanding and touching more lives.
Yes.
But I mean, I feel like
That's why we're in this.
Yeah.
Community outreach.
Community outreach. I mean, we'll definitely as we expand our channel and grow. I'm excited to interact with the chat and everything, and talk to people other than you as much as I enjoy doing that. Talking to other people and
What was
getting
that?
feedback. anyway, talking to other people and getting feedback about what their thoughts are, and kind of a good back and forth with them as well, and get them involved, because I feel like that is very much a big plus when it comes to podcasts and just talking sports in general. I think, especially for me, that's why I made this podcast, and I know you had this as well. But the biggest thing about this podcast is just speaking your mind, and just, I mean...
And I've got some things I want to say.
Okay.
Next time.
Oh,
Next time.
he got you. He got us both, really. I was ready for it. I was on the edge of my seat.
I did.
And I'm excited. I'm very much looking forward to that next time.
That makes at least two of us.
Our third. We have a third.
I know these people are. I'm waiting for these likes to disappear.
As we continue.
Oh my gosh.
What?
There are two watching now.
Oh, there are two watching? We have almost a handful, I'd say.
We really, really do.
Oh,
That's kind of exciting.
that is exciting.
Doesn't it give you goosebumps?
Oh,
Just a little bit.
you can't touch them, but I can feel them.
It's a shame. I hate to tell the second person that just jumped in that we were just about to end the podcast.
We were wrapping it up.
We were wrapping it
There
up.
was a
right
bow. The bow was out, about to go on the box.
now. And I mean, you missed what might be the best podcast I've listened to all day.
Oof. I've only listened to none, so this would be the best podcast.
I've listened to one, but I read it using Braille. So
I
think this has got to be the best one I've listened to yet.
And you know what the best thing about this podcast is? It's going to go up
It's
after
me
this.
talking.
Oh,
Oh,
but yes, it will
it
go up
will
after
go
this.
up, yes.
And so you can watch it over again. And for that one other viewer we have, and the many more that will tune in, you can go back, and we will post this on our YouTube channel. As you can know what it is Carolina Packers Podcast.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to watch it over again and comment, like, subscribe as well, and just kind of get into the groove with us.
Do you think it's someone we know?
I know it's someone we know.
I figure it's someone we do know.
I can almost guarantee you it's someone we know, because I have no other clue who else it could be other than a handful of people that we know.
One of our 4 subscribers. Oh, and they've dropped.
Oh, that's okay. It's okay.
Wouldn't it be funny if it was not someone we know?
You know, it could be, but they're a part of us now. They are a part of our crew, and I'm looking forward to expanding with them.
Yes. They've watched a little bit. I know they're hooked. I'm hooked.
I would be.
They'll be coming back to watch the whole thing.
Sounds good. Thank you guys for watching. I'm looking forward to it next time. Anything else?
I think that's about it. This has been the inaugural episode of the Carolina Packers podcast. I don't know what word you would use to describe it other than exceptional, but I'll
don't
just
think
throw
there's
that. I think not.
I mean, I think we covered some good grounds. I don't
know my thesaurus that well, but exceptional is a good one.
I think as a Panthers fan, I feel like you should be really excited about the trade your team
For
made.
Rudy Gobert?
Don't get confused
Sorry,
now.
Baker
We
Mayfield.
only talked about 2 things today, but I think they were very much key things to discuss, and I think especially as a Panther fan, you definitely are excited about Baker Mayfield,
We are excited.
and I think that's about it. That's about a wrap.
I
I'd say.
think that wraps it up pretty well.
Thank you for watching. Like I said, if you enjoy the video, like it, subscribe, maybe
channel.
throw a comment down there.
Tell us how much you like it,
If you don't like it, you can do whatever you want.
but make it funny. Please.
Make it a good comment. I
Yeah.
like good comments. We're gonna read them all because
Irony
there's
is
not gonna be many.
Irony is appreciated, even if it means I loved this is what you wrote.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
See you next time.
All right.